Living with my wife has become a waking nightmare, one where every creak of the floorboard feels like a countdown to disaster. She's not just unstable, she's dangerous, her mind unraveling into something I no longer recognize. Every day is a tightrope walk, and one wrong step could mean catastrophe. Her violent outbursts have escalated from screaming matches to throwing objects, and now she's taken to locking me inside our home as if I'm her prisoner. The doors are bolted, the windows sealed shut, and even the phone lines mysteriously go dead when she senses I might try to escape. If I dare suggest leaving, or worse, actually attempt it, she breaks down in hysterics, threatening to end her own life right before my eyes. "If you leave, I'll kill myself," she screams, clutching a knife or standing precariously close to the balcony edge. It's psychological warfare, designed to keep me trapped in this twisted charade of a marriage. And then there's the surveillance. She tracks my every move like a predator stalking its prey. My phone pings constantly with messages demanding updates on my whereabouts. Sometimes I catch her lurking outside my office, watching through the blinds, her face pale and hollow. Once, I found a GPS tracker hidden under the car seat, a chilling reminder that she knows everything. Even at night, sleep eludes me because I can feel her eyes boring into the back of my skull, waiting for any sign of betrayal. This isn't love, it's obsession. And I'm drowning in it. Every day feels like a death sentence as I pull into the driveway, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. The fear of what awaits inside that house has become unbearable. She's not just controlling, she's a monster wearing my wife's face. The beatings have escalated from slaps to punches, leaving bruises that no amount of makeup can hide. My body is a map of her rage. Black eyes, split lips, fractured ribs. And yet, the physical pain pales in comparison to the psychological torment she inflicts daily. Each blow feels like another nail in the coffin of our marriage, but escaping her clutches seems impossible. And then there's the job I lost because of her relentless harassment. She would call my office at all hours, screaming obscenities at my coworkers and supervisors, accusing them of conspiring against us. "He's being brainwashed by you," she'd shriek over the phone. The final straw came when she showed up unannounced at the office, throwing a tantrum in front of everyone. "You're helping him cheat on me," she screamed, shattering whatever professional reputation I had left. By the time HR called me into their office, it was already over. I was fired, humiliated, and trapped with no means of financial independence. Because, of course, she controls every penny we own. Every bank account, every credit card, it's all under her name now. I'm nothing more than a prisoner in my own life, forced to beg for pocket change like some pathetic child. When I confronted her about it once, she laughed cruelly. "What will you do? Leave?" she taunted. "Without me, you're nothing." Her words echoed in my head long after the argument ended, a cruel reminder of how powerless I truly am. The worst part? Knowing she'll never stop. Even if I manage to escape this nightmare, she'll find me. She always does. Last week, she hacked into my email and discovered messages between me and an old friend who offered support. That night, she ambushed me in the kitchen, wielding a knife. "Who are you talking to?" she demanded, her voice cold and venomous. I barely escaped with my life. Now every creak of the floorboards makes me jump. Every shadow sends chills down my spine. Sleep is impossible. Rest is a luxury I can't afford. I've become a ghost haunting my own existence, longing for freedom, but too terrified to take the first step. The moment she found out about Melissa, my world imploded. She didn't just discover her existence. She made it her personal mission to destroy both of us. I thought keeping Melissa a secret would protect her, but nothing could prepare me for the depths of my wife's obsession and cruelty. One evening, as Melissa walked to her car after work, two men in black suits cornered her in the parking lot. They flashed photos of us together, stolen moments I thought were safe, and hissed threats that sent chills down my spine when she recounted them later. "If you don't disappear," one growled, "you'll regret ever crossing paths with him." Melissa was terrified, tears streaming down her face as they handed her an envelope containing explicit pictures of us, each one marked with the ominous red X's. My wife wasn't playing games anymore. This was war. Then came the private investigator my wife hired to trail me everywhere. Every move I made was documented. Coffee breaks, late-night drives, even accidental glances at women on the street. The reports landed on my desk at work like ticking time bombs. When my boss called me into his office, I knew what was coming. "Explain this," he demanded, slamming a folder filled with surveillance photos onto the table. The images painted a damning narrative. A married man sneaking around with another woman, oblivious to professional boundaries or decency. The company couldn't afford scandals like this. By the end of the week, I was packing up my belongings, humiliated and unemployed, all while my wife watched from afar, savoring every second of my downfall. But the worst part? The confrontations between the three of us. That night, when my wife stormed into our home, dragging Melissa by the arm, screaming accusations so loud the neighbors must have heard, I felt the walls closing in. Melissa trembled under her gaze, pleading with me to say something, anything to diffuse the situation. But what could I do? My wife stood there, wielding a knife, eyes blazing with fury. "Pick!" she screamed, pointing the blade back and forth between us. "Choose now, or I swear I'll make sure neither of you survives this." Her voice cracked with desperation, yet there was no reasoning with her. It wasn't just anger. It was madness, raw and unrelenting. The sound of sirens shattered the suffocating silence of our home, but instead of relief, it brought chaos. My wife, unhinged and feral, lunged at the officers as they stepped through the door. "You think you can take him from me?" she screamed, her voice piercing like a banshee's wail. She clawed at them with a ferocity that seemed almost inhuman, swinging a heavy glass vase before it shattered against an officer's arm. The room erupted into pandemonium. Shouts, scuffling, the sickening thud of fists meeting flesh. I tried to intervene, shouting for her to stop, but in the chaos, she turned on me. Her nails raked across my face, leaving trails of fire, and then came the blow, a lamp crashing down on my skull. Darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke up, blood trickling down my temple, I found myself handcuffed to a hospital bed. The irony was unbearable. I was the victim here, yet somehow I was also the suspect. My wife had spun a web of lies so intricate that even I almost believed them. "He attacked me first," she sobbed to the officers, her tears flowing like a practiced actress. "I was only defending myself." So meanwhile, I could barely speak. The pain in my ribs told me at least two were broken, and every breath felt like swallowing shards of glass. The accusations flew back and forth, each one more damning than the last. Was I being charged with domestic violence, assault, or worse? And then there was the looming threat of prison. If her story stuck, if the bruises she inflicted on herself convinced the authorities, I'd be the one behind bars while she walked free. The thought sent waves of panic coursing through me. What would happen to Melissa? To my life? Would anyone believe the truth that I was fighting for survival against a woman who had become my captor? As detectives questioned me, their skepticism hung heavy in the air. Every answer I gave seemed to dig me deeper into this nightmare. They showed me photos of the crime scene: overturned furniture, shattered glass, and streaks of blood smeared across the walls. It looked like a war zone. And legally, I was losing this battle. The thought of losing my child tore through me like a knife, but that's exactly what she threatened to do. "If you leave me," she hissed one evening, her voice trembling with venom, "you'll never see our daughter again." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as I watched her clutch little Maya closer to her chest, almost possessively. It wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration of war. Every time I tried to approach Maya, she'd pull her away, whispering lies into her ear about how I didn't love us anymore. My heart shattered each time I saw the confusion in Maya's eyes, her small face crumpling with fear and uncertainty. And then came the ultimatums. "Sign over full custody to me," she demanded during one of our explosive arguments, slamming papers onto the table. "Or I'll make sure the courts believe you're unfit, a violent man who abuses his wife." Her laughter echoed mockingly as I stared at the forged documents, accusations pre-written by her attorney. Panic clawed at my throat. How could anyone believe this fabrication? But deep down, I knew she had the upper hand. She controlled everything: the narrative, the evidence, even our daughter's fragile mind. Maya's cries haunted me long after they faded. She'd started having nightmares, screaming for me when her mother wasn't around, only to be silenced with harsh words or worse. One night, I found her locked in a closet, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mommy said you don't want me anymore," she whimpered, clutching my shirt like it was her lifeline. I wanted to scream, to break every wall between us, but I couldn't. Not without risking losing her forever. The custody battle became a battlefield, brutal and unrelenting. Lawyers circled like vultures, tearing apart what little remained of our family. Each hearing felt like another nail in my coffin. The judge listened impassively as she painted me as an absent father, too entangled with Melissa to care for my own child. And Maya? She sat there, silent and pale, caught in the crossfire of two people who were supposed to protect her. The guilt crushed me daily, knowing I was failing her, knowing she'd carry these scars far beyond childhood. The nightmare escalated when I woke up to a barrage of notifications on my phone. Photos of Melissa and me, intimate and damning, plastered across every social media platform imaginable. My wife had done it. She'd hacked into my accounts and released everything. The images weren't just private. They were explicit, raw, and accompanied by captions that painted me as a cheating monster. "Meet the man who destroyed his family," one post read, followed by hundreds of comments calling me every name in the book. Strangers dissected my life. Friends turned their backs and colleagues whispered behind closed doors. Within hours, my reputation was in tatters. Then came the calls from work. My boss's voice was cold, final. "We can't have this kind of scandal attached to the company," he said before terminating my contract. Just like that, I was unemployed. Not because of incompetence, but because of shame. Friends I thought were loyal vanished overnight, leaving me isolated and drowning in humiliation. Even my family refused to speak to me, their disappointment cutting deeper than any blade. But the worst blow came when Melissa received an email, a ransom note demanding $50,000 in exchange for keeping more photos offline. It wasn't even my wife this time. It was someone else, someone who'd seen the chaos and decided to profit from it. Pay up or these go public, the message taunted, attaching a few sample images that made my stomach churn. Melissa broke down sobbing, clutching her phone like it might explode at any moment. "What are we going to do?" she cried, her voice trembling. I didn't know how to answer. Every option felt like stepping further into quicksand. And yet, despite the blackmail, the ruined career, and the shattered friendships, none of it compared to the guilt gnawing at me. This wasn't just about losing face. It was about betraying everyone who ever trusted me. My marriage, already hanging by a thread, now lay in ruins. My relationship with Melissa, once a lifeline, became toxic under the weight of scrutiny. I was drowning, suffocating under the consequences of choices I couldn't take back. The divorce proceedings turned into a battlefield, but not the kind I expected. What began as a desperate attempt to escape my wife's madness spiraled into a financial apocalypse. She demanded half of everything: our house, our savings, even assets I'd accumulated before we met. "You think you can walk away clean?" her lawyer sneered during one heated session. The numbers were staggering: millions of dollars tied up in properties, investments, and accounts, all frozen under court order while they picked apart every transaction I'd ever made. It wasn't just about splitting things fairly, it was about destruction. My wife wanted me ruined. But the real bombshell came when the forensic accountant uncovered debts I never knew existed. Loans taken out in my name, credit cards maxed to their limits, secret mortgages on properties I thought were paid off. It was a financial labyrinth designed to trap me. "How could you not know?" my attorney asked incredulously after reviewing the documents. I didn't have an answer. I trusted her with everything, and now that trust had bankrupted me. The total debt? Over $2 million, a figure so absurd it felt like something out of a nightmare. And then there was the countersuit, a legal ambush that blindsided me completely. She claimed I'd hidden assets during our marriage, accusing me of funneling money to Melissa behind her back. "He's been plotting this for years," her lawyer declared dramatically in court, presenting falsified bank statements as evidence. Each allegation felt like another blow to my already shattered reputation. The media ate it up, painting me as a greedy manipulator who used his wife's mental instability to siphon funds. By the time the judge ordered a deeper investigation, I was drowning, not just in debt, but in despair. Every day brought new threats from creditors, letters demanding payment or foreclosure notices arriving by mail. My car was repossessed, my utilities cut off, and my credit score plummeted to rock bottom. Friends stopped answering my calls, and even family advised me to settle, no matter the cost. But settling meant giving her everything: the life I'd built, the dreams I'd worked for, and leaving myself with nothing. For the first time, I truly understood what it meant to be powerless. The church bells that once brought solace now rang like a death knell for my fractured life. My wife, ever the devout believer, had turned our marital collapse into a public spectacle under the guise of faith. She confided in the local pastor, spinning tales of betrayal and sin until I became the pariah of the congregation. "How could you abandon your vows?" he asked me one Sunday after service, his voice dripping with judgment. The whispers grew louder. Communion wine turned sour as parishioners avoided sitting near me, their eyes filled with disdain. Even children pulled away when I tried to greet them, their parents likely warning them against associating with that man. But it wasn't just the community, it was her family too. Her father, a deacon at the church, led the charge in condemning me. At family gatherings, which she insisted we still attend, I endured sermons disguised as prayers, each word laced with accusations. Repent before God abandons you, they'd chant, hands raised toward heaven, while mine trembled in anger and shame. They painted Melissa as a temptress sent by Satan himself, corrupting what they believed was a holy union. Every mention of her name felt like another dagger twisting in my chest. And then came the ultimatum: reconcile or face excommunication. The pastor visited me personally, quoting scripture about forgiveness and redemption, but his tone made it clear this wasn't an offer. It was a threat. Your soul is in jeopardy, he warned, leaving behind pamphlets on marital sanctity that might as well have been written in blood. Meanwhile, my wife clung tighter to her faith, using it as both shield and weapon. She prayed loudly during arguments, invoking divine intervention to save me from myself. It wasn't salvation she sought, it was control. Caught between guilt and fury, I began questioning everything. Was I wrong? Had I sinned beyond redemption? The weight of their collective judgment crushed me daily, amplifying the chaos already consuming my life. And yet, despite the pressure mounting from every side, reconciliation seemed impossible. This wasn't just a marriage falling apart. It was a war waged in the name of God, with no mercy for the losing side. The nightmare reached its peak when I discovered her plan, scribbled in jagged handwriting on a crumpled piece of paper hidden beneath our mattress. Take her out, it read, alongside crude sketches of what looked like a kidnapping scene. My blood ran cold as realization hit. She wasn't just threatening Melissa anymore. This was an execution order. That night, shadows seemed to stretch longer. Every creak of the floorboards felt like footsteps closing in. I couldn't breathe without imagining her accomplices lurking outside, ready to pounce. Then came the chase. A heart-stopping race through rain-slicked streets after I intercepted one of her hired goons tailing Melissa. He'd been leaning against his car, casually snapping photos until he saw me charging toward him. Tires screeched as he sped off, but I wasn't about to let him escape. Not with evidence that could save us both. The pursuit turned into chaos. Cars swerving dangerously close, pedestrians screaming as we barreled past red lights. At one point, he rammed my vehicle hard enough to send it spinning, but adrenaline kept me going. When I finally cornered him in an abandoned warehouse, the fury inside me boiled over. "Who sent you?" I shouted, pinning him against the wall. His silence only fueled my desperation. But retaliation came swiftly and brutally. Our home became a war zone. Windows shattered, walls vandalized with graffiti spelling out threats. "You'll pay for this," they warned in red spray paint across the front door. Inside, furniture was overturned, drawers emptied, personal belongings strewn everywhere like remnants of a life torn apart. It wasn't random destruction. It was calculated cruelty meant to break me. And then there were the calls, always at midnight, whispering promises of retribution so vile they made my skin crawl. Revenge escalated further when she targeted Melissa directly. A package arrived at her doorstep, a box filled with broken glass and a severed doll's head, accompanied by a note. "Stay away or next time it won't be plastic." Each act of malice pushed us closer to the edge, turning fear into a constant companion. Every moment felt like walking on thin ice, knowing one wrong step would shatter everything. The last time anyone saw me, I was standing at the edge of the cliffs overlooking the ocean, my silhouette swallowed by the stormy horizon. The wind howled like a banshee, pulling at my clothes as if trying to drag me into the abyss. Behind me lay a trail of unanswered questions. Where had I gone? Was it by choice or force? My phone was found shattered on the rocks below. Its screen cracked into pieces that mirrored the fractured reality of my life. No note, no explanation, just silence. But the mystery didn't end there. Days turned into weeks, and still no trace of me surfaced. Investigators combed through every detail. Security footage showed me pacing nervously outside Melissa's apartment hours before vanishing. Bank records revealed large withdrawals made in cash. Even the priest who'd counseled my wife admitted he'd received strange calls from an unknown number late at night. He sounded desperate. The priest confessed during questioning, like he knew something terrible was coming. Yet none of it added up. Had I fled to escape my unraveling world, or had someone finally pushed me over the edge? And then there were the warnings, the ones I left behind without realizing. Scribbled notes hidden in drawers, voice memos buried deep within my phone, all hinting at fears too dark to articulate aloud. If anything happens to me, one recording began, only to cut off abruptly mid-sentence. Friends whispered about what they'd seen, bruises on my arms, hollow eyes that spoke of sleepless nights, muttered apologies for sins I refused to name. Even now, those fragments linger like ghosts, haunting everyone I left behind. But the most chilling part wasn't my disappearance. It was the sense that this wasn't over. Every shadow seemed to whisper her name. Every creak of the floorboards echoed with the possibility of her return. My wife, still free despite everything, continued her charade of innocence while rumors swirled about new victims. And Melissa? She started receiving letters written in red ink, each one more cryptic than the last. "You'll never be safe." Read the latest, postmarked from nowhere. They say some stories don't have endings, but mine feels less like closure and more like a countdown. Somewhere out there, the clock is ticking, and when it stops, I fear the worst is yet to come. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.